So the Red Wings had a pretty solid road trip out west, getting 3 out of 4. And the Pistons, their great take for Victor Wembanyama continues to roll on for another week, even though it will be delayed a little longer this week because of the All-Star break for the NBA All-Star Game. Seriously, people still get hyped up over the NBA All-Star Game when it's been Team LeBron versus Team Giannis for how many fucking years in a row? Well, it is what it is. But at least Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey had solid showings during the Rising Stars game. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's talk about everything that happened in Detroit sports this week. So, of course, for the Pistons, they only had one game this week, and that was against the Boston Celtics. And this game would officially be the debut for James Wiseman. And James Wiseman actually had a pretty solid debut game, not gonna lie. Had a very solid game. So, James Wiseman's trying to prove everyone wrong from that trade about everyone thinking he's gonna be terrible in a Pistons uniform. So far, he's having a good start. They're trying to prove everyone wrong, but keep in mind, it's only one game, folks. Only one game. Let's see where this is by the end of the season. We'll come back to it later, by the end of the year. But hey, so far, made the most of his first opportunity in the first game. But yeah, in the end, despite all that, the Pistons, still not much got changed because the Pistons still got blown out by the Celtics. I mean, it's the best team in basketball versus the worst team in basketball. I mean, the fact that the best team blew out the worst team, is that really surprising? Because the Celtics are probably the favorite to win the championship this year. But in the end, the Pistons lost, and for the first time in God, when was the last time the Celtics swept the Pistons in a series? Like, it's been a goddamn while since that last happened. But it happened. The Celtics sweep the Pistons, and now it's the Pistons' only game this week because the All-Star break has now come. And even though the Pistons had no All-Stars in this game, in the All-Star game this year, like, the only one that probably could have been eligible for it was Cade Cunningham. And Cade went down with an injury earlier in the year. But we did have Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren in the Rising Stars game, and they both had pretty solid showings in that game, especially Ivey. God damn. But yeah, other than that, the Pistons had a bit of a week off. But other than that, the great take for Victor Wembanyama continues to roll on. Along with our logjam now for center on the Pistons. The one thing with the Red Wings is that there are no logjams here, at least not yet. As the Red Wings, they started their little West Coast swing this week out west for 4 games. And they had 3 wins out in the West with 3 in a row, all against the Canadian refugees out west of Vancouver, the Edmonton McDavids, and the Calgary Flames. Of course, Vancouver, they beat the living shit out of Canucks. And of course, this week, Dylan Larkin continues his impressive run since the All-Star break, as Dylan Larkin still continuing his quest for a new contract. Now, of course, no real progress was gained on either side between him and Yzerplan in contract negotiations. All quiet on that front. And of course, the Edmonton win was also pretty impressive, beating them in the shootout. And then they completely blew out Calgary as the Flames are still contending for a playoff spot. And with the Wings continuing their hot streak, the Wings have actually now clawed their way back into the playoff races. They're only 2 or 4 points out of a playoff spot. Like, they're right within range of the playoffs. Even Mo Sider did some things. Even, I believe, David Perron got his 700th point. So yeah, that's really cool to see for him. Sadly, though, the Wings' hot streak came to an end this Saturday night when they had to play a real team again in the Seattle Kraken. And this, as the Seattle Kraken, yeah, the Wings didn't stand much of a chance against Seattle. Seattle was just so fucking good. And keep in mind, Seattle's this good and they don't even have Shane Wright, since Shane Wright got sent back down to the OHL up in Ontario. And then Shane got ended up going to Windsor. But yeah, Seattle's looking pretty solid in year 2 of the season. Now, whether Seattle has a run similar to the Vegas Golden Knights in 2018 or not is yet to be seen. But Seattle, there's a good chance the Kraken could make their first playoff appearance this year, 2 years into their existence. Not bad. So now it's looking like Seattle may have now all 3 teams being worth a damn. Especially if the Mariners continue their success from last year. And if 2022 for the Seahawks wasn't a flash in the pan for this Hawks. But yeah, that's pretty good that Seattle actually now has 3 teams worth a damn. Especially the Kraken. It's good to see those boys actually do well up in Seattle. But yeah, not bad. But yeah, the Wings though, their hot streak came to a bit of an end. Their winning streak at 5 games was snapped at the hands of Seattle. You know, and that's just the Wings for you. The Wings are really good at beating the teams they need to beat. But they usually struggle against the top tier teams in the league. But the Wings do got a bit of a challenging schedule. They got some hard games and they got some easy games coming down the stretch. But, you know, the Wings will have a game out of Washington before they come back home. And, of course, the trade deadline quickly looming. As what happens to Tyler Bertuzzi at the deadline? Are the Wings going to keep him? Is he going to get flipped for draft picks? Because we all know how well Steve Yzerplan can draft in the draft. And you know the best way to get built through the draft is to get more rolls at the dice. So will Steve Yzerplan go that route? Or do they keep him around and maybe hope they can get him on a hometown team-friendly deal? Since Larkin's going to take up a good chunk of the payroll with his inevitable extension. Unless neither side reaches agreement and Larkin ends up walking, since they can't really trade Larkin with his full-on no-trade clause. Now, he'll more than likely enforce if they try to trade him. But yeah, Wings are still stuck between a rock and a hard place with Larkin. Like I said, meet in the middle with Larkin at $8.5 million. I think that's a fair deal right there. But Larkin's recent run of success the last few games, that's just going to put more leverage in Larkin's favor, though, over Steve Yzerplan. But yeah, that chicken match between Yzerplan and Larkin still continuing on. Like Yzerplan doesn't have enough on his plate already, especially with the deadline looming quickly. But yeah, and also the Tigers spring training starts next weekend. And for a Tigers off-season recap, there is no recap because the Tigers literally did next to nothing other than a couple trades, nothing real major. But yeah, the Wings though, they could be in a position to be in the playoff race. Like 100%, this is a big turnaround from where the Wings were a year ago. Like regardless of what happens, you know, this is a great success because the last 2 months of the season, the Wings are actually going to be playing meaningful games late in the season, that's good to see, you know? It's good to see a team in Detroit not named the Lions. No disrespect to the Lions, of course. Playing meaningful games. I mean, yeah, it was great to see the Lions play meaningful games, but do we really just want one team to play meaningful games? I would rather have all 4 play meaningful games. But hey, the Red Wings are definitely making progress this year. You know, regardless of what happens this year, it's still a success as they are taking that next step forward. Whether they make the playoffs or not is yet to be seen, but more than likely, if the Wings want to make it into the playoffs, they're probably going to have to get 100 points just to make it in. So they're probably got to win, have to go 18-10 or 18-10 or better to have a shot at the playoffs, though. And so far, they're off to a rough start as they're 0-1 on this last 28-game stretch. So in the next 27 games, they got to go 18-9 or better, I think, to have a shot at the playoffs. I mean, they do got 2 or 3 games up against Washington for that, and to catch them for that final spot. And oh yeah, they play Washington next Tuesday. But yeah, can the Wings make the playoffs? And of course, the Tigers spring training begins as the Tigers are getting ready to roll their tanks out for the draft lottery, to win the draft lottery again. Because yeah, everyone's saying the Tigers need to rebuild, even though they were already rebuilding. So now the Tigers are going to be rebuilding on top of a rebuild. Yeah, the Tigers are officially the new Lions. They're where the Lions were back in the 2000s. Just a goddamn mess. And then the Pistons are still tanking to win the lottery. But yeah, a lot will be decided coming up. But yeah, at least the Red Wings are playing some meaningful games. That's good to see.